Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I am Gary Mack, and I'm joined, as always, by the great, the wonderful Mr. Rich Baxter. Rich, how are you on this Wednesday evening?
Yes, doing well. Thank you, Gary. Middle of the week for a special broadcast of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm all into it. All of a sudden, it's kind of feeling like fall out there. The boys of summer have transitioned, and we're going to be talking about the boys of autumn soon.
The Boys of Autumn, and we're still not sure who the Boys of Autumn will be because the pennant races are hot and heavy, especially for the wild cards. The a couple of the divisions are set already. I think the NL East and the NL West are definitely set with the Braves and the Dodgers. Central is still a little bit up for grabs, 4-game lead, I think, by the Milwaukee Brewers there over the Cubbies. But the wild cards, of which your team is one of the wild card finalists, if you will, and they're cemented in there pretty good at the first wild card. And but there are some battles going on in the American League West, the American League East, and the wild cards.
Sure, yeah. The Braves are the only one that are officially clinched into the playoffs so far. They clinched on Sunday with a victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates. They punched their ticket to the playoffs for the sixth straight season. So the Atlanta Braves are on one of those rolls again. We may remember back to the 90s when they practically owned the division. And It seems like they're firmly entrenched in doing that again. The Phillies full 16 games back as we started the day off today. On Wednesday, as you said, September 13th. Only 2+ weeks left in the season, 2.5 weeks, if you want to call it that. We're down to that precious few again, Gary, and it's hard to believe that this season has almost run its course, the regular season, that is. And as you said, those wild card races are heating up now. The division winners are pretty much close to being called. But there's still a lot of races to be determined.
Yeah, the American League West is a real barn burner with Houston and Texas, and Seattle got in the mix there, and now they've dropped a little bit, but they're still battling there. And of course, when the divisions are battling like that, the last two wild card spots, the same thing. Toronto's fighting with Seattle and to get into the wild card, and over in the National League, Miami and Cincinnati, and who else am I thinking here?
The Marlins, maybe
the Cubbies. Yeah. They're all fighting to get that last playoff spot. So it's really an interesting time for the game, and unfortunately, my team is out of it, but. We'll see what happens next year.
Yeah, for the Mets, of course, and as you said, there's a lot of yet to be determined, and this is when I like to watch the wild card race. I know I've talked about it all season long when people were talking about the wild card back in July, August. It's so silly to talk about the wild card back then because there's so many changes that come down the road. Right now, the Phillies have a plus 3.5 game lead in the wild card, being in the first spot. But as you said, the Chicago Cubs are right behind them, a couple of wins away from getting up there themselves. Should something happen with the Phillies, and even the Arizona Diamondbacks are right there as well as the third wild card team. Cincinnati, San Francisco, and even Miami are within reach of possibly getting up there as well, should one of the top three teams falter here. So now we have what's interesting in the wild card race. And as you mentioned, over in the American League, it's the same thing. It's even closer with the top four teams. Tampa Bay has that 8.5 game lead right now. So I guess you could say they're in. as the wild card, probably your first wild card there. But there's three teams right after them that are still battling, as you said, Toronto trying to get in, Seattle, and Texas. So uh, these are the days that I look forward to with the wild card. It's going to be fun going down the stretch. Of course, as you mentioned, the Phillies are in it, so I'm kind of happy at that. But yeah, we're going to be talking about some playoff baseball real soon.
That's right, and yeah, you're lucky. Second year in a row, you've got something to talk about. I'm not going to have much with the way the Mets collapsed this year, but I think it's going to work out all for the best. The guys they got rid of, they brought in some good minor league talent, and it really kind of invigorated the minor leagues a little bit, and so we'll hope for the future. But Phillies look good, and the Braves are a little bit afraid of the Phillies, as they said in a comment, because of the firepower that the Phillies have, and just played a tough series with the Braves, and didn't do great, but at least played hard and showed their mettle.
Yeah, that's for sure. And outside of the teams running for the playoffs, the big news in the past week was the possibility of Mike Trout being moved from the Angels. He's supposed to be discussing the Angels' plans with them, and there was some headlines in the last week saying that Mike Trout could be on the move from the Angels, depending what he hears from them and depending if he okays such a move. And that would be earth-shattering news for the MLB.
Boy, that would be something. And would he stay in the coast, or would he come to the East Coast? You know, he's an East Coast boy, lives here in the off season. Would he want to come to the East Coast at all? I mean, a lot of options here. He's got the Yankees, he's got the Mets, he's got the Phillies. He could play for any of those teams, I'm sure, and that would be awesome to have him in this area,
this neck of the woods, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you said, the Mets just offloaded a ton of salary, so they would probably be one of your front runners. I don't know if the Phillies could afford $300+ million players on their team. You're almost talking $1 billion over 10 years of salary. That's a lot of money, but you never know.
And the question is, what are the Angels going to want for him? So that'll determine a lot where he goes, because a lot of teams may not, even though he's still fairly young, he does have a history of injuries. So that could bring the price tag down a little bit. And the Mets, who knows? It's a big contract, and we'll have to wait and see.
Yep. Speaking of an ex-Met, Max Scherzer going to miss at least the rest of the regular season, and playoffs are unlikely, announced today, this evening. A low-grade strain of his right teres major muscle, which is located in the upper arm. So that was the report out of Texas, that Max Scherzer going to miss the rest of the regular season and possibly the playoffs as well.
And of course, Texas made that trade with the Mets, hoping to have him in the playoffs and down the stretch. And here he gets hurt. So I guess you could chalk that trade up to the Mets. They got a good prospect for him, and now he's out, so he's not going to be able to help Texas. So they took a chance on two ex-Mets pitchers this season, and both of them are out. So that's the way it goes sometimes. And
yeah,
I'm talking about DeGrom they signed, and he went out with the he needed Tommy John surgery, and now Scherzer. So didn't work out too good for the Rangers.
Yeah, what are the odds in this happening for the Rangers? That is pretty poor. Now, getting back to the playoffs real quick. If the playoffs started today, I'm reading a graphic here online at MLB.com. If the playoffs started today on September 13th, when we're recording this podcast, the Phillies would be playing the Cubs, and the Brewers would be playing the Diamondbacks. And waiting for those two teams would be the Brewers and the Diamondbacks would be the LA Dodgers, the winner of that series. Of course, the winner of the Phillies Cubs would have to play the Braves. So that's the way the National League looks at this point. And over in the American League, again, if the season started today, Seattle would be playing the Minnesota Twins, and the Texas Rangers would be playing Tampa Bay. And who would be waiting for the Texas Rangers in Tampa Bay would be the Baltimore Orioles, sitting at the number 1 seed. And the other opponent for the Twins and the Mariners would be the Houston Astros. So you've got those teams that are, powerhouse teams waiting in the wings possibly. And it seems like it's going to be a good playoff year this year.
Yeah, and some different teams in the mix as with Texas and Seattle and Arizona maybe, and the Cubbies back in it. So and who knows, Cincinnati and San Francisco breathing down the back of the Diamondbacks. So yeah, it could be interesting, and it's always fun to see some new teams once in a while.
Yeah, and as you said, the Cubs came out of nowhere. In my radar, they just started to win in the past month, and they kept winning, and that's propelled them up to be in talks with the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with them. And as you said, some new teams introduced into this year's playoffs. Who knows what's going to happen, whether the Phillies will continue their great playoff ways of last year, or will they be one and done out of the series early? You never know.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And Rich, the Braves have been bashing the ball all season. In fact, they hold the record now for the National League. They broke the home run record for a team, and Matt Olson tied the Braves franchise record for homers with 51, and he's got 2 weeks left in the season. He tied a record set by Andrew Jones in 2005, and the Braves as a team are on a pace to tally 311 homers, which would be 4 more than the MLB record set by the 2019 Twins. So the Braves have really set themselves up, I guess, as the favorite. They also puts a target on their back in the playoffs as well. But the way they bashed through the season, they've really set themselves up as the playoffs to win it, the favorite to win it all.
Yeah, they sure do. And that 51st home run, by the way, was hit in Philadelphia. And a little story behind that, the Braves asked for the ball. And who did they ask to get the ball? Not an usher or anything. They yelled over to Kyle Schwarber, who was in left field, and get the ball, they told him. So he made a motion to the crowd that he wanted the ball. They threw it to him. He got it, and he was able to replace a autographed ball from Kyle Schwarber to the fan that caught that ball in Philadelphia, the 51st. Tied for, I guess, the most in Braves history, 51 home runs, something like that.
Yeah. He broke. He tied the record for the franchise record for homers. Andrew Jones had set the record 2005. He broke it now. So, but as a team, they've been just clobbering homers all year. So they took over the National League record and are on a pace to perhaps break the Major League record. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there too. Records continue to fall. The new era of power still around, though. The time clock has changed some of that and brought some small ball back in with the stealing of bases and whatnot. But the game continues to evolve, and We have to accept that.
Yeah, yeah. Like it or not, and I'm usually on the not side, especially the 10th inning. You start a runner at second. How many times has that team in the top of the 10th won the game? You might as well just flip a coin after the game to decide the winner. It
Well,
would be more fair.
I don't like that. I agree with you there. I don't like that. That to me is it's just
poor.
stupid.
Yeah, it's poor.
Thing. It's Bush.
Because most people know you could, bunt the runner to third, sacrifice fly, you got to score, It's just, whatever. I mean, that's what they want to do with baseball. I can't watch it into extra innings for that reason. It's too bogus for me.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense and it's not right.
Well, if you like the podcast, you want to give us an email. We used to get a lot of emails. I don't know where our emailers went, Gary. We still have our close friends, Len and Jeff from our Baseball and Barbecue podcast that email us a lot. But I'm talking about the listeners out there, Grubby Glove, people like that. What happened to you all out there? Send Gary an email at gary@baseballtalkradio.com. Or Rich at baseballtalkradio.com as well.
I was just going to say, if you don't like me, send one to Rich. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're easy to get along with. Yeah. You can find our show and a bunch of other independent great shows and, commercial shows for that matter over at baseballtalkradio.com. I just paid my internet bill to keep it on for another 2 years. So believe me, it's costing me money. So if you go on the site, please visit an ad or two. Every time you go on the site, it'll help to replenish those fees. I was shocked when I got my bill and it was due in like 2 days. I had to either decide to keep it going or shut it all down. So it's going to go on for 2 more years at least. So please patronize the ads there at baseballtalkradio.com and, of course, our shows as well. Gary, do you have anything for the end of tonight's podcast?
Yeah, I do. The poor Oakland A's. I mean, this is really a story that is never ending. They are looking for a home. Naturally, we said that they've signed. They're gonna probably. It looks like they're gonna move to Vegas. Everything seems to be in place. Now they have to raise money for a $1.5 billion ballpark, but that's not going to open until 2025 or something, or 2027. Well, it might start getting built in 2025. So they're going to have a place to play as their contract runs out with the Oakland Coliseum in 2024. Well, Oakland's not happy. And we stated that a few podcasts ago, and they are going to make it difficult. They don't want any short-term contracts with the A's, and they want, they want some designs on everything. If the A's definitely go, they can stay at the Coliseum, but Oakland wants promise of an expansion team, which I don't know how the Athletics can promise that. That's got to come from Major League Baseball. And they want a commitment to have the Athletics name and records remain in Oakland, which would mean that Oakland would have to come up with it. The A's would have to come up with a whole new name, and it would not carry to Las Vegas. So it would be like getting a whole new team in Las Vegas, much like what Art Modell did when he took the Cleveland Browns to Baltimore. So it's not, it's not a good situation for them. They could end up playing in the Giants ballpark, but then they have to work out a schedule with them. They could move to the minor league ballpark in Las Vegas, but then they'd have to do something with the facilities. They'd have to upgrade it a little bit, and so it's still a bit of a mess with the Oakland A's. And boy, I don't know what this team can do to get things straightened out, Rich.
Yeah, yeah, it's not going to be easy, but as far as a name change, they could go to the Oakland Aces and probably be fine. Of course, that franchise started in Philadelphia many, many, many years ago, and maybe it's run its course. So we'll have to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
And I talked with a member of the Marlins today, Dontrell Willis, and I told him, I says, I hope baseball stays forever in Miami because that's a nice town. It's a nice Major League Baseball town, but they have an attendance problem too. So you got two stadiums, different leagues that have very much the same problem. That's fan support. So now it's Oakland. Who knows? Maybe down the road we might hear the same thing about Miami.
Yeah, and Tampa's in that kind of a boat too. You don't hear much about it. They are looking for a new stadium. I think they'll work something out. They seem to be more on the quiet side as they're working through their situation. But of course, they don't play in the worst ballpark in baseball, and that's what the problem with Oakland is. It's a terrible ballpark. The facilities are awful. Remember the sewers were the toilets were backing up into the dugouts at one point, and it's just awful situation. So hopefully they can rectify all of that. And, it's like anything else. These big cities, they complain about crime, but they're letting the criminals go. So, they don't want to fix the stadium or anything, but they don't want to let the team go.
Yeah.
So not only you're hurting the fans, you're hurting everybody else. So
yeah.
they got to wake up.
And not to get political, but I don't understand that. It used to be the opposite. If you did something, you had to pay the penalty for it. What changed in this society, this country of ours? That's a big change. So let's see if that can get rectified. The Oakland A's get rectified. We need the help here, Gary.
Yeah, I know. People should listen to us more.
Yeah. Tune in more, and we'll give you some tips, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe we can save the country and baseball all at the same time.
Yes. An easy job. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show, everyone. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. You can also support the show and go to our main website there at Spotify for podcasters. And if you want that address and don't know how to get it, that's a big problem in finding podcasts. Send us an email, Gary at baseballtalkradio.com or Rich at baseballtalkradio.com. We'll send you a link. We'll make it easy for you to help us get some support.
And we can also put the link on our Facebook page, so you can find us there as well. And you can find that link, as Rich said, to Spotify or our Patreon link too, if you feel up to it and want to help out the show a little bit. Like Rick says, it does cost a little bit of money, and we don't really, we don't make a penny at it.
We're in the red.
we're so far in the red. It works good for the Phillies, I guess.
It's a tax deduction.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon when we'll be talking more about the playoffs and the MLB. Have a great week and talk to you soon.